Well, happy day, everyone. Welcome to another Friday. Today, I'm going to call this Let's Unpack This. I asked you all last week to help me come up with some different ways we can describe when I have these conversations. So I encourage you, do me a favor, not just to watch this, but comment in the under this video to let me know your suggestions. Tonight I'm calling Let's Unpack This. My mom gave me that suggestion. So, who can argue with your mom? So we'll see if that is the one that wins, but I need to hear from you for you to let me know as we continue to do these things and I share different content with you, whether it's music or conversations like this or behind the scenes or whatever. I appreciate you. And those of you who have not subscribed, do so and share this with somebody as well, this conversation. Because this is a conversation that I honestly was a little hesitant to have because I try to stay on the side of encouragement, inspiration, motivation, all the Asians. But there are moments that you find yourself looking at the world that we live in like, what is going on? So I posted a few weeks ago, if you're not following me on my social sites, a conversation or a video about how I had a friend of mine who had gone to take their child to a HBCU for a summer intensive. And at one of the sessions, the facilitator asked the parents a question that they were going to propose to the students. And the question was, when did you realize you were black? And I had had an incident subsequently during the same time where I was running down a street in the town that I live in. It's a suburb outside of this major city. And I saw this truck coming towards me, and while I was running, the truck sped towards me to make sure that I ran off the road. And of course, it was a white gentleman that was riding in that car, that truck. And that was another reminder amongst many reminders that I'm black. I posted that not for sympathy for me, absolutely not. It's just one of many stories from, many countless accounts that we have, the most recent, Nolan Wells, and others that are too many to name that should not be forgotten. But there are constant reminders every single day. And I wanted to have a discussion about it to unpack it a little bit more and hopefully you generate, and not for the sake of, I had someone who sent me a message in one of the comments who says, I don't focus on that stuff. We should focus on other things, and drawing attention to that is just making us, just constantly talking about a wound that we had that we must move forward. And to each its own to be able to have your opinion. But when I looked at the many different comments even on my Facebook page and even Instagram, so many were talking about how they grew up in the 50s and they couldn't understand why they were only not allowed to play on the porch. Someone was talking about driving in the west end of Louisville and getting pulled over for a headlight being out. And all these, so many different responses that people had about being marginalized or otherwise when they were 5. Some people talked about how they grew up in the house and their parents always talked to them about being black. Or for those of you who are not necessarily black, but minority, it doesn't matter. And I would venture to say, I remember growing up and my parents having conversations about, if you get pulled over by the police, this is what you do. Not going and staying out with people who don't look like you on weekends, or certain we need to know where you are, who those parents are, what are the check-in points, what time are you going to be here, what time, all these different types of things that are normal conversations. I remember having conversations with my sons about when you are dating and when you're dating another race. And I've said many times to them that my daughter never did, but date outside of the race. But I always said that person that you're dating might like you. Their parents might even tolerate it. But everybody in the family will not. And you need to be aware of that. My youngest son, we live in a place that I grew up in. I actually was born in the western part of Kentucky, in a place called Greenville, Kentucky. And then we moved to a place called Nicholasville when I was 11. And though that is a place a lot of my development happened. And to this date, I still live there. But I'm very, very much aware that we're the minority. Like, there's no circumventing it. There's no going around it. And I've told him oftentimes he's gifted. He at that time was a basketball star. Then he started doing theater and different things. And I told him, I said, you do know that you are liked until you are not. You're black. And they will praise you. And it's very controversial all the time for people like, that's not true. It is true. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to win. So I've always made him aware of these truths that you need to be aware. And coming home, as we've learned in recent years, making it home is to be celebrated. It used to be something we just took for granted, but you don't always make it home. And I want to just continue to talk about it from knowing that even in research, it says that kids start noticing racial differences as early as 6 months old. Like, by the time they're 3 to 5, many of them have already started to understand racial biases, even if they're not even able to understand it. And going back to childhood, I knew very much so. My high school graduation, I don't know the exact number of how many of us graduated, but I do know that there was at least, if there were 4 of us that were black, there were 3. I don't remember, but it was a very small number. I lived in a place, state of Mississippi for almost 10 years. And I remember one time going to they didn't have this particular, it was like a market that I went to, like a grocery store. And there was this older white couple that had came out of the market with their buggy. And I could tell they were struggling, trying to put it up. So I said, trying to put stuff in their trunk and stuff. So I went up to them and I said, hey, would you like help? I can help you. And they said, yes, of course. So I helped them put their stuff in their trunk, and then I took the buggy and was parking it in. And I don't know if it was the lady or the man, I don't remember, but one of them said, they said, you know what? Thank you. I said, you're welcome. They said, you're one of the nice coloreds. I said, excuse me? He said, no, there are bad coloreds, and then there are good ones. You're one of the good ones. This was in, 2007, 8, something of that. Not in the 80s, not 70s, 60s. I wasn't born then. I didn't know whether I was supposed to say thank you or I didn't. And I realized in that moment, they really thought they were giving me a compliment. Like, they weren't trying to be divisive. They weren't trying to be rude, or they really thought that it was a good thing to say. And there are many moments like that people are just not aware, culturally or racially, of what's happening, the transactions and the different things that are happening. And for those people who say stuff like, God doesn't see color. I don't see color. And we understand what you're saying. You're trying to talk about, it's more about the character, about who you are as a person, and that is to be admired. But you don't have to dismiss color. We're just asking you to understand, or to be able to find out what it means to be other, what it means to be different. Does that make sense? Like, you don't have to dismiss a thing to remove the sting of it. Like to say, I don't see gray. I don't see pink. I don't see green. And that doesn't remove the existence of it. We're saying, before you dismiss a thing, try to understand it from that lens. It is not a rallying cry to be able to say that, we're trying to get all attention towards, see me, hear me roar. It's not that. It's to say, before you say it's not that big of a deal, when is the last time you got pulled over and were very uncomfortable at the interaction between you and an officer who did not look like you? When is the last time you've been followed in a store, an outlet, a gas station? When is the last time you walked into a restaurant and everybody looked at you as if you were not supposed to be there? When is the last time you walked into a church service because you were visiting a state and you didn't know, and you walked in and you immediately knew you were not welcome there? When is the last time you were, interviewed for a job and they found out that you were actually minority because your name seemed like, something that, or you sounded away on the phone? They say, oh yeah, and then you got in and they looked at you. I mean, when you have countless stories and things like that, it might make you consider, like, oh, listening to black music. I sometimes cringe when I hear people say, I love black gospel. And I understand what it's meant by it, but I just feel like, you never hear any of us talking about, I just love that good. No, those different types of things, to realize that I've heard for years growing up that you have to be twice as good to get half as much. Those are normal cadences of the life that many of us have grown up in, and that we have lived. So when I'm talking about when did you realize you were black, it's loaded in the sense of somebody posted, I realize it every day I walk out the door. Now that I have your attention, have you subscribed to this channel? If you haven't done so, do me a favor right now and hit the subscribe button and make sure your notifications are on. I don't want you to miss anything at all. The next question I have for you, have you registered for Refuel? I have a few questions I want to get off my chest. Have you registered for Refuel? Because if you haven't done so, I need you to do so right now. I don't want you to miss it. It's going to be a great weekend designed with you in mind. I know what it's like to be a leader, a creative, a business leader, all of that, an educator, all those different things, artist, whatever I haven't listed, social worker, bus driver, whatever it is that you are, and you go and go and go and don't stop. I want to create a weekend, have a weekend in mind, just to make sure that you get fuel to be able to do it again and again and again. It's nothing like trying to do and be your best self and you're rusty. I want you to be there that weekend because whether it's the sip and paint that we have on that Friday night with the DJ, just a great experience for you to just to wind down and to enjoy fellowship with other people that are like-minded like you, or that Saturday, a time for others to pour into you so that you'll not just have tools, but you'll be able to say, hey, thank you for creating a space that I could be refueled. I want you to be there. And when you register, send the link to somebody else, because I'm sure you know someone else who's at that point that they need just a little bit more to help them go further. So don't miss it. I want to see you. I don't want you to hear about it and say, oh, I'll be there next year. Be there this year. I promise you. You'll be glad. So I just wanted to take a moment to unpack it a little more for those people who didn't understand why it's a big deal to have this conversation, and why we continue to have this conversation, and why we continue to have more names that we speak their name, more moments that we have to mourn, more people who show up missing, or more stories that are still unsolved. Many of us are just tired, tired of saying it's not that deep. Yeah, you have to spend a day in some of our experiences for you to understand it's not just that deep. It's his life. I want to wrap this up as we've unpacked this, and I'm not even wrapping it up neatly. I want to say it to all of you who are both Black and those of you who are viewers who are not. When did you realize you were Black? Or for those of you who are not Black, when did you realize that your friends were not you, or your coworkers, and what did you do about it? Did you just say, well, God loves everybody, and he does, but everybody doesn't have the same opportunity? So let's unpack this. Because there are some of us who are walking on every day with that constant reminder of who we are. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you again next time.